lounge by the pool with an umbrella drink at the Atlantis. But if you were to come to me and said, I want to do a story on the last hand-wound lighthouses in the world where they actually crank the things up by hand to make them turn, and 2 of them do exist, and nobody ever writes about them. To me, that means you actually did your homework. You have a very specific storyline, and I'll say this quite honestly, it's a major pain in the neck for us to accomplish, because it's not open the drawer, here's the trip. If we really want to work with you at that point, we have to really work to make that story happen. That those are the stories that take off and fly and are authentic and really become, I think, great storytelling. So, that one sentence of what, we used to say, if you can't write your idea on back of my business card, you don't know what you're talking about. It's kind of true. If you can write your story idea on the back of a business card, I know you know exactly what you want to do, because it's very hard to use fewer words than more.
So how many travel bloggers in the room have never been on a press trip that was hosted partially or totally by a PR organization? Anybody never been on one? Awesome. Okay, so, because that was the next, because I was about to cut out like 6 questions. Yeah, we can do the questions, that's why I'm excited. So let's say that you have pitched successfully, or a PR person has pitched you successfully, and you're about to go on your free trip. Those can take a lot of different forms. Sometimes it's by yourself, sometimes you're in a big group. But I'd like to give them a little bit of an overview of what something like that is. Maybe we start with Pam and Andrew, since I know that you guys have, I know Andrew has traveled on press trips before. What do you consider to be the expectations, and how do you lay that out before you ever leave your house? So there's no confusion.
Normally I get a pretty good layout of what they are going to have me do, but usually they'll get in touch with me and say, what do you like to do? If I'm pitched from a PR place to go visit, let's say London, they'll pretty much ask me, what do you like to do? Like, do you like to drink? And I say yes, and then they send me on a bar crawl. But no, you pretty much have to tell them what your interests are, because if you don't, and they give you your itinerary before the trip, and it's a bunch of things that you really don't do, it's probably not going to make for a good press trip and good stories. So my expectations when I'm going into one is pretty much telling them exactly what I like and I don't like, and then they get back to me and accommodate me or say sorry, we're not interested. But I lay everything out and I research like crazy before I go on a trip. I don't just go on a press trip and follow the itinerary. I would like, my ideal press trip is when they give me a couple of hours to myself to actually go out and, find my own story. And now I'm rambling, so.
I did 2 really different press trips in about 6 weeks, in the last 6 weeks. I did one which was your classic 4-day slog with a handler, where everything was organized. We were on a schedule. We had to be various places at various times and only for the prescribed amount of time. And the other trip I did was sort of organized at the front end, and at the back end it's kind of, it really opened up and I could do a bunch of stuff that I wanted. So I got to pick the stuff that I got to do. So I participated in some activities at the beginning of the trip, and towards the end of the trip I did stuff like I took a ukulele lesson, and I went on a hike with a group that had nothing to do with the related press tour and all this stuff. So those are 2 really different experiences. And you end up with a very different sort of potential for stories when you're done with that too, because on the first trip where we were on this very detailed schedule, by the end of it, I swear I did not know where I was. Everything was just, I was completely overwhelmed. And I sat down when I got home and I thought, what did I just spend the last 4 days doing? It was warmer than it is in Seattle, but I don't know what happened, right? And I had to look at my notes, and then I'm just starting to unravel that stuff now. I prefer the second model, obviously, because it gives me time to do what Don George was talking about earlier, sit in places and look and see what's really happening. The 4-day bungee in, bungee out thing, to me, is an exercise in frustration, and I know a lot of people, a lot of journalists work that way, but for me, you bungee in, you bungee out, everything's on schedule, and there's no time for magic to happen. There's no time to have people sit down next to you and just start talking about something crazy. And that's my preference. I like the idea that there's enough space in my trip for something that's out of the ordinary, that's also going to give me real insight into the place. And I don't think that, so the PR relationship can make it possible that I'm in that place, but often it's so tightly controlled that there's no, I'm in a hotel taking a tour with a bunch of travel writers when I should be 4 blocks away to really find out what that place is like. And I understand that the hotel has an agenda they have to push and they want me to write about the hotel, but that's never my story. My story's the destination. What's it like to be there? What are the people like? What do you do when you're there? And so I've totally gone off the rails.
Yeah. So that's okay. So for our PR team, and I know there's obviously there's a lot of variance, but I think that as much as we would love to have really super customized trips for every person we work with, the reality is there's some kind of generalities